One of the promises of the Adios Pro Evo 1 is that the learnings from this shoe would trickle down into Adidas' mainstream product. We've seen some of that promise fulfilled in the recently announced Adios Pro 4, and now even more of that lineage is making its way into everyday product. This is the Adizero Evo SL, and it's time to take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm an elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys all about the Adizero Evo SL. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Adidas sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Adizero Evo SL, and let's start with the specs. I think the headline spec is that it's Light Strike Pro midsole foam in this shoe. And unlike other shoes from other brands that use the same name as their racing foams, even if the daily training versions are chemically different, this is actually racing caliber foam in this shoe. I've confirmed with Adidas that it is Light Strike Pro in this shoe and nothing but Light Strike Pro in this shoe, and the same exact Light Strike Pro that's in the Adios Pro 3. And there is a slight variation in terms of stack height and drop in the Evo SL versus its racing big siblings, where the Evo SL starts out at 38.5 millimeters of stack height in the heel and ends with 32 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot for a 6.5 millimeter drop. And like I said, there's no stabilizing element whatsoever in the midsole of the shoe, so you're getting a really great opportunity to experience what pure Light Strike Pro really feels like. Now, another element that they've borrowed from the Evo 1, other than the aesthetics of the shoe, and it does look absolutely stunning, and it does look very similar, is that they've borrowed the 60% rocker position. And so what that means is the rocker is the point at which the front of a running shoe kind of curls up a little bit, and it helps you as you're running forward to get over the foam and through the foam, so that way you can push off for your next stride. Now, if we measure from 0% all the way to the full length of the shoe, 100%, where the rocker position starts is at 60% of the length. From 0 to 60 over here is where the rocker position starts. And this is really early compared to a lot of other shoes in the Adidas lineup. Even the Adios Pro 3 started at closer to 70% of the length of the shoe before it started in that rocker geometry, but the Evo 1 and the Adios Pro 4 both start at 60%, and the Evo SL is mimicking that geometry here. Now, to protect all this midsole foam, we've got a generous helping of Continental rubber. There is pretty wide coverage in the forefoot of the shoe, and then 2 little strips in the back of the heel. Now, while there is a good surface area amount of coverage, the rubber that's on here isn't very thick, but as we've seen from other Continental rubber products, the durability on these rubber outsoles is pretty high, so the thickness of the rubber doesn't really bother me here. Moving to the upper, we have what looks very similar to what we saw in the Evo 1, but what feels, in fact, very different. The upper for the Evo 1 was almost transparent. It was almost see-through and extremely lightweight, yet also strong. Now, we have a little bit more of a traditional upper in terms of what we see on the Evo SL, but it is very breathable, and the design is still very clean and minimalistic, just like what we saw in the Evo SL, which makes the 3 stripes that go across the shoe even that much more striking. And then the other really big difference that I know between the Evo 1 upper and the Evo SL upper is in the tongue and in the padding in the heel cup. The Evo 1 tongue was kind of difficult to deal with. This one is much more kind of traditional and standard. It's still very thin, and I like it very much. And then in terms of padding in the back, you could tell that this shoe is built a little bit more for daily training and not necessarily for racing, because there is a lot more comfort features built into this. There's a lot of padding around the back of the heel cup and a little bit of structure as well. Altogether, Adidas tells us that this shoe should come in at 224 grams. And when I weighed my US men's size 9, my reference size shoe, it came in at exactly 224 grams or 7.9 ounces. Now that we talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on foot. And I gotta tell you, pure racing foam in a daily trainer is really nice, or at least it's really nice in the way they've implemented it here in the Evo SL. I've taken the shoe out for recovery run efforts, daily training, and for some speedier work as well. And I think it excelled in all three areas, although it is doing certain things better than others. I find that there's a really nice squish to it. The foam is compressing nicely and decompressing really well. Although I think that some people are going to find that the way that this shoe is set up, it's going to be a little bit unstable at some of the easier paces. And I found that like the shoe kind of felt a little bit muddled after long extended periods of easy running in the shoe. I do feel like the shoe does speedier running or like kind of up-tempo running really well though. And what I mean by up-tempo paces is stuff that's maybe a little bit slower than your marathon race pace and all the way up to half marathon or maybe up to threshold efforts. I feel like that range of speed, which is a pretty broad band of effort levels, at those paces that are faster than easy, I feel like the foam is really starting to perk up and respond like a super foam would, where it's getting a great amount of compression and decompression, and I'm enjoying the amount that the foam is deflecting, but I also enjoy kind of the rhythm or the pace at which it's deflecting as well, because I feel like it's really matching with my foot strike and my stride. And I think that when you're picking up the pace a little bit in this shoe, that's where I think that the 60% geometry of the rocker that's in this shoe feels the most kind of sensible. I feel like at some of the easier paces, the 60% rocker, where the rocker starts so early, makes it feel a little bit more aggressive than the shoe necessarily needs to be. It's a 6.5mm drop shoe, and I feel like it feels like a much taller drop because of that aggressive rocker that starts so early. But when you're picking up the pace even just a little bit, that's where I feel like the whole thing really just makes a lot of sense together. And if you think about it, it should make a little bit more sense that way because it's borrowing so much heritage from the Adios Pro 3, the Adios Pro 4, and the Evo 1, kind of all put together and distilled into this daily training package. And at the end of the day, I feel like calling it a daily trainer is a little bit reductive, or calling it a session shoe also is a little bit reductive, because it's not strictly a session shoe at certain paces when I want to go faster than threshold. And certainly if I were to do a big VO2 max workout, I would want something that's a little bit snappier here, and that's where I'm missing the pop of a plate in this shoe. But the fact that this shoe can kind of handle a lot of what an average runner is going to encounter during a marathon or half marathon training block, I think is really quite amazing that they've been able to put that all into one shoe. I do feel like the biggest detractor, I'd say, for this shoe is the upper. The materials that they've chosen look great, but I think that every material that's here is a bit of a sweat collector. So on those hot days, on those really big workouts that you're gonna put into this shoe, your shoes are going to be soaking up a lot of liquid. Now, before we wrap up the video, let's take a moment and see where the Evo SL could fit within a broader Adidas running shoe rotation. Now, the Evo SL for me fits as a daily trainer. It can certainly do a lot of different types of things, but the bulk of the time that you're going to be using this shoe, you're probably going to be using it for your everyday runs, your easy runs, taking up the bulk of your weekly mileage. And then for racing, you're going to look to its sibling, the Adios Pro 4, as the racing option. There are similarities in geometry, a lot of similarities in feel. These two shoes alone are going to make for a really fun running shoe rotation if you wanted to go with just two. But let's add some more into the conversation. I think one way to go really crazy and wild with this is to bring in the Prime X 2 Strung. This is more of a long run shoe, but not just any long run shoe. If you've got a long run with some speedier miles built into it, or you have just a big workout where you want a lot of cushion, and this has a lot of cushion and double carbon fiber plates, this is a really fun, albeit expensive way to add some spice into your long runs. And now there's some gaps in between each of these shoes, and this is where this running shoe rotation is gonna get a little bit, I don't know about controversial, but to get a little bit interesting. And the reason reason why I'm gonna kind of play around with it a little bit is because when I reviewed the Adios Pro 4, I went through the similar lineup kind of conversation, and then went through the, I think, more traditional take on the Adidas running shoe lineup. But let's spice things up a little bit, especially because Adidas has so many different shoes in its arsenal. I think one shoe that I could put here in kind of like the max cushion category, or in the long slow distance category, where you just want to be chill and comfy, is going to be the Boston 12. Now, this isn't normally where the Boston sits. Normally I put the Boston here as kind of a session shoe, but the way that the Boston 12 is built, and the way that the Boston has been going for a lot of years, is to put it more in kind of like this longer run time on feet category of shoe. It's really comfortable for casual wear. It's really comfortable for longer, easy runs. It does have some Light Strike Pro in it and some form of energy rods in there, so it can pick up the pace a little bit, but for me, it doesn't love picking up the pace. So I'm gonna put it here in this kind of max cushion, more comfy category of shoe. And then in this speed category spot, I'm going to put in the Adios 8. Now, normally I would say I can't imagine why you would pick the Adios 8 over the Takumi Sen, which is the normal shoe that I put in this spot. But keep in mind that these are 2025 shoes that we're talking about here. The Evo SL is coming out in 2025. The Adios Pro 4 is coming out in 2025. Each of these shoes won't make it into my 2024 year-end wrap-up videos and comparison videos because they're 2025 videos. So as a placeholder for now, I'm gonna put in the Adios 8 here. Watch this space for 2025, because I think what they're bringing is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be better than the Takumi Sen, but it's certainly going to be in the conversation of the Takumi Sen for what the next Adios is going to be. So I'm going to talk about this here in that speed category, when you want to go a little bit faster than what your daily trainer can do, but maybe don't have as big, or maybe have a faster workout in terms of paces than what you might do in your marathon racer. And this, I think, is another very valid way of putting together an Adidas running shoe lineup in 2025. Now, let's wrap up the video by talking about the buying guide, and we'll also go over some alternatives that you will likely want to consider. The Adizero Evo SL is the best daily trainer in the Adidas lineup, and it's a really great example of how good and versatile Light Strike Pro can be. For people who are looking for their first marathon racing shoe and don't necessarily want to get into carbon, this is going to be a really great choice. For people that are looking for an extra cushioned session shoe, it's also going to be a really great choice. And for anyone that just wants to be a little bit extra and have an all Light Strike Pro midsole foam as their daily trainer, the Evo SL is going to make you pretty happy as well. This shoe won't be available until 2025, but when it does release, it'll be coming in at $150, which, yes, is a lot of money, but I really think that it's quite a bargain. Let's take a look at some of the competitors to see what they come in at, to see where that 150 stacks up. And the first shoe that I'm going to talk about is the Pegasus Plus. This is a shoe that proudly labels that it has ZoomX foam in it, but anyone who has run in this shoe and also run in any other ZoomX racing shoes know that they're not exactly the same kind of ZoomX that's in it. Now, while I think it's wildly misleading to the consumer to give the same name to the foam that's in the Alphafly 3 and in the Pegasus Plus, I think that given different names, I don't think that there's anything wrong with tinkering with the formulation of the materials in order to achieve a desired effect in a daily trainer. And I do think that this is a really great daily training experience. It feels very much like a Pegasus, and it feels very much like a Peg Turbo as well, kind of wrapped into one, splitting the difference in a lot of ways. And each of these shoes would be a great choice for daily trading or for workouts and sessions. The other thing about this shoe is that it comes in almost an ounce heavier and $30 more expensive, because you're gonna be paying $180 to get to the Peg Plus. Now, the next shoe that I want to talk about, and again, both of these shoes that I'm going to compare to the Evo SL are shoes that I really like in 2024. And the other one is from New Balance. It's the Rebel version 4. This again is using a foam that is called Fuel Cell, which is the same name as the racing foam that New Balance uses, but it's a different formulation than what's in their race product. Their race product has PEBA in it. This is a PEBA EVA blend. And I think that that's a successful combination. I kind of take offense to the fact that they call it the same thing, but overall, at the end of the day, the material that's in here is really nice. It's lightweight, it squishes the right way, it bounces back in the right way, and it makes for a really lightweight, fun running experience. It's about the same weight as the Adizero Evo SL, and I would use these two shoes in a lot of very similar ways. The big difference for me though in the Rebel version 4 and why I might not reach for it in as many kind of fartlek workouts or even longer tempo progression runs that I might use the Evo SL for is that there's a lot of width to the bottom of this shoe. It's wider at the pads of the feet, it's wider underneath the arch, and it's much wider through the heel. And I think what they're trying to do is prevent this shoe from getting too unstable. And so they're trying to stabilize it with width, which I think does the job. That'll certainly make it more stable, but it also makes it a little bit less nimble and a little bit less exciting. You're getting a little bit of discount though for those trade-offs because the Rebel version 4 comes in at $140. So those are my thoughts on the Adizero Evo SL and the competition. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?